And I'm talking with an old friend of mine, Paul Wozniak. We're talking about environmental work he's done in the past up there in Green Bay, and we're going to talk about a few more things. Paul, tell us the status of the Fox River Environmental Alliance today. Now that you're gone and you were one of the spearheads in that, is it still going on? Are there younger people who've taken it on? Not that you're that old, but
yeah. Well, I am that old, but first of all, I'm just one actor. It takes an entire diverse community to make change, and rather than being the activist that you might imagine me, getting up on the soapbox, shouting for change, I actually am somewhat of a spectator, a reporter, a journalist, writing about things that I've learned and then sharing it with other people. There are other activists there who really made the change, one of them being a woman named Becky Caters, who created a group called the Clean Water Action Council. And almost single-handedly, well, she had a lot of support. Because she stood up, all of a sudden people said, I agree, but I'm too scared to get up there and say that. But she led investigations and got the federal and state governments to pay attention, to recognize that there was chemical pollution in the sediments, that it was influencing the bird populations, the fish populations, human health. All this was secret history. The dumping of PCBs and other chemicals in the river was secret history, and Becky became the popularizer of that. And now there's a major remediation, they call it. That's a technical word for dredging the bottom of the river, which is mud filled with chemicals, taking it out and disposing of it properly away from human beings in the food chain. And they're in the midst of that now. It took 20 or maybe more years of battle by Becky and a variety of attorneys to get the corporations there to pay attention, to get lawsuits filed, to get the government to pay attention. Governments are always being bought off or pressured. And work is starting now. So it'll take 10 or 20 years to do it. It's sort of like in New York State, there's something called the Hudson River, which is well known, and it's being dredged because of pollution from the General Electric Corporation that made these transformers with PCBs. And so this is comparable in scale to that. The Fox River, and by the way, I'll mention there's two Fox Rivers in Wisconsin. Many people know the Fox River that's in the south part of the state that flows into Illinois. And
our Fox River, where there was a guy named the Fox who used to do environmental actions. Yeah, we don't know who that is.
I interviewed him.
Oh, I'll
tell you later. But the Fox River I'm referring to is in northeast Wisconsin. It flows through the city of Oshkosh, Appleton, up to Green Bay. And Green Bay is part of Lake Michigan. If you're not familiar with geography, Green Bay actually is Lake Michigan. People of the coastal cities of Wisconsin, just like Illinois and Indiana, get their drinking water. Okay, so you got contaminants in the water, and you've got fish populations and birds, and they're drinking the water, and well, problems are occurring.
Yeah, we certainly have problems. There's a couple things I want to ask you. Let's start with the Fox, the environmental activist here in Illinois.
Yes.
Who really tell us about him, because no better day than May Day when the people stand up and on the side of the people to tell us a story from our history about someone who took action. And he was legendary. I mean, there were articles about it. He did actions. Fill us in. Tell the listeners what was going on.
Okay. Well, this is actually my first introduction to the environment. Was through the Fox. I grew up in Chicago, on the northwest side, and I was a reader. And I read the newspaper, particularly the column by a guy named Mike Royko.
I remember Mike Royko.
Mike Royko. Okay. Well, Mike Royko had a way of telling stories and using vernacular. He would use the spoken dialects of people, and it was believable. And he was always hanging around bars where there were city hall workers or people who weren't considered, the high visibility front stage person, and they would tell, here's what's going on, Mike. And so he told these stories, and one of the stories he told was about this guy called the Fox. Now, the Fox is passed on. several years ago.
Passed on.
Yes. He was actually an EPA regulator and a law enforcement person for the EPA. They have guns and badges and warrants. If they find somebody is breaking a crime, poisoning a river or water supply, air, whatever, they can go in and do searches, etc. And so in the course, I haven't listened to the tape for years, but I have a T-shirt he gave me and a bumper sticker, the Fox, whatever. He dressed up in like I'll say a burglar costume, or like anarchists do, with hooded face mask, whatever. He knew who the polluters were because he'd inspected their plants. And in particular, there was a Dial Corporation plant, as I recall. I hope I'm not incorrect on the company. And they were discharging waste illegally at night, like many companies did in Wisconsin too.
Probably still.
And he blocked their drainage pipe. And so the drain...
oh, you hear that bird cackling in the background?
Yes. What bird was that?
I don't know. It's a loony bird.
So that was one of the stories. He took action because he saw the problem. He knew who the culprits were. And he didn't have time to organize a mass movement while people were being poisoned. So this was one of his things, and he took also a bucket of sludge. I think before the clogging of the pipe, he took a bucket of sludge from a discharge pipe and went into the corporate headquarters. I could be wrong on that. It might have been City Hall, but I think it was the corporate headquarters of a company. And so I have a delivery from the Fox and dumped it right onto the carpet of a downtown Chicago office building.
That's good. So you still have the tape with this guy?
Yes. Yeah, I have made oral history recordings. Again, thanks to Studs Turkel. Thank you, Studs, wherever you are. For 30-some years. And the history project in Green Bay that I'm talking about, well, we got connected with some skilled people. They says, you know, you can get these tapes preserved by the Wisconsin Historical Society. You have to get permission forms. They have to be signed. You turn the tapes over. We'll keep them in this climate-controlled, safe environment, and then they'll be available for anybody to use. And so I started to do that, and there's well over 110 tapes of different interviews that I've done.
Well, you know, Paul, we have you know, my goal down the line is kind of a Heartland Internet TV, probably working with some other people, but we actually record all of the radio shows as well as do special interviews. And for now, we've been putting them up on YouTube. And anyone can get those by going to youtube.com/heartlandmedia, or if they go to the heartlandcafe.com, there's a media project, you hit that. But I'm thinking that that's something you might want to do with, certainly with the interview with the Fox, is, you know, in a few parts put together with articles from the newspapers, any pictures, any that kind of thing. It would be a great thing, and you certainly would be welcome on our website.
Sure. No, well, thank you very much. That's how I got started on this. I listened to people who are knowledgeable. The guy who got me started on river history was a professor. He said, well, why don't you do it, Paul?